Welcome to the program today. Mondo Gonzales here in studio, and I have a very special guest all the way from the land of Israel. Byron Stinson has joining us to talk about really all the wonderful things, prophetic developments that have been happening with the red heifers. So we want to welcome Byron. Welcome.
Thank you, Mondo. It's very nice to meet you, and I appreciate you having me on your show.
Yeah, I've been following this for a while, and it's so exciting, all the news that's going on. And for those watching, I want to kind of do this in reverse order, in the sense that it's been coming out in the news, and you can comment on this if you will, that of course people probably know that in last September, 5 red heifers were flown to the nation of Israel, the state of Israel, from Texas. But now they're just getting ready to go into a visitor center at Shiloh. So kind of tell us a little bit about that.
Yeah, so we've been holding them at another location while we were working with the government here. And by the way, when I say we, every time I say that, it's going to be our organization, which is Boneh Israel, which means to build up Israel. That's Boneh Israel. And so the leaders of Boneh Israel, which are very respected rabbis and leaders here in the country, are very excited about the red heifers being here. And we've had many rabbis come and inspect the red heifer. And actually, this newly elected government wanted to be part of everything that's going on. And the idea came up that if they went to Shiloh, then it would be a place where people could kind of get a lot of bang for your buck. If you bring your tour group up to Shiloh, you'll get to see the actual place where the Mishnah, the tabernacle tent stood for 370 years. And then we're actually building a center there to be able to take care of 2 or 3 of the cows. Not all of them. Will actually kind of keep them separated.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that makes good sense. And I just read recently about them establishing the pad and everything else. And when do they have an idea of when the visitor center would be ready?
The walls are already up. They are moving fast, and we already had one showing with one of the cows. That happened on Thursday, and a lot of people came, and it's very exciting. It was on Channel 7 News here in Israel and went out across the nation, internationally. And we already have one cow there and moving forward.
That is such great news. I know that they had been talking about it. I was there in Israel in March, and I was hoping to get there because we went to Shiloh, and I was like, I'm looking, and it just wasn't quite ready yet. So nevertheless, exciting times for sure. So another question is, I hear a lot of rumors about, there's 5, some have been disqualified. Give us the facts.
Okay, so we did bring 5 over. And when they got here, they were all perfectly red. One has grown a few white hairs in its tail, and it's not 100% disqualified. The rabbis have looked at it. The idea is that you don't have 2 hairs coming out of white or black out of the same follicle, and so we don't know that that's the situation on that one. The other one does have a couple of white hairs, but for sure is not coming out of the same follicle. So we have a couple of them that have grown some white hairs in the tail, and that's pretty common, especially for the Santa Gertrudis. We have 2 Santa Gertrudis and 3 of the Red Angus. And so there are some white hairs, but actually none of them are completely disqualified. Okay. It's just that there is a potential that they could be, but it's not yet. As of right now, we still technically could have 5, but for sure we have 4 that are good.
Okay, so that's a good specification there, because in the sense of discussing follicles. So is it possible to maybe have more than 2 non-red hairs, but as long as they're different parts of the body? Yes. Is that how it works?
Yeah, so what you're looking at is no spot or blemish. And so they decided that and you got to remember, the rabbis are doing this. It's the first time it's been done in 2,000 years. So there's been a lot of rabbis and a lot of discussions, and so they're moving through this process like everybody else. But from what I understand from all of the reports to me, is what they're looking for is not to have a spot or a blemish. Now, a blemish is a scar or something that won't heal. we were actually able to like insert a little small microchip. Usually goes into pets, small dogs, things like that. But we had to have a way of identifying them to bring them internationally by air. So you're able to insert that with a small needle, and it doesn't leave a scar, so it's not a blemish. But a cow could really easily get against a fence, cut its leg, and then it's got a scar, and then it's no good. So none of them have any blemishes like that. We've taken good care of them. And so they're all unblemished. None of them, of course, have had any kind of yoke or any kind of thing put on them like that. They all are red all the way through. And we looked at a lot of cows. We searched a long time in a lot of places. And these are good, and they're fully red.
That's incredible. I really appreciate that, because my goal here is to try to get rid of some of the confusion and the rumors that are spread around. And I saw on Facebook disqualified. I was like, oh, okay, well, I guess if it's on the internet, it must be true.
Yeah, I see those stories, and I'm just like, man, just call me.
Exactly. Yeah, you've been very gracious to open yourself up to interviews, which is awesome. And so on that note, so the red hairs, I see different descriptions, and certainly in the Talmudic writings, and even they disagree, and in the Mishnah there's disagreement. How old is like 2 years, 8 days, 2 years, 1 day, 3 years? I mean, what has been the kind of the consensus that's current?
So when you have your first birthday and you're 1 day past that, how old are you?
I would be in my second year.
Right. And that's what this is. It has to be in the third year. So the cow has to be past its second birthday into its third year. Now, for safety's sake, because the Jews are always, and this is very careful. You're very careful about the law. In other words, on Shabbat, Shabbat doesn't technically start until you see the third star. But in Israel, they have a running clock that's like 3 hours earlier. And that's when Shabbat starts, to make sure you don't accidentally run into it. And then you go 3 hours past it. So the same thing is here. Technically at second birthday, you have the birthday party, and the next day you're good. But because we want to be safe, we're going to say at least 2 years and a month. And then you're good. So it's safe then, which will be, one of the cows is already going to be right on Yom Kippur. One of them is going to come of age, but it's too close to do a ceremony at Yom Kippur. And I think it's much more fitting anyway, where we want to do it, which is Passover 2024.
Yeah, that was going to be my next question, is looking at the ages coming up this fall. There's, as far as I understand, there's no requirement that it has to be the ceremony or the ritual slaughter has to be done on a feast day, right?
I don't think that it has to be done on a feast day, but that is exactly where the rabbis placed that they wanted to see it on a feast day. And for me, coming from a background of, I'm a believer that Yeshua is the coming Messiah, and they know that. They don't, most of the rabbis I work with haven't seen that yet, but they're very kind. They love me. I love them. Mm-hmm. And we've agreed that we're going to agree on everything we can agree on, and where we disagree, that we're still going to be friends and wait for God to help us all understand what the truth is in some of those areas. So I think for me as a Christian, I'm so thrilled that it looks like it'll be a Passover, because we know the events of not the first Passover, but the Passover of 33 AD. We know those events, and it lines up. And so for me, it's very exciting that that's the one they chose. I didn't get to choose that, but that's the one the priest and the rabbis have chosen as the time they think it'll be.
Yeah, and so you mentioned the priests, and that would probably be something good for our listeners. There are priests that have been trained for this, and kind of talk about that.
Yeah, so Israel is prepared with everything, basically. They've already got a flock of lambs available. They've already got, stones ready for the temple. They've got all kinds of things ready. And one of the things that they knew someday there would be a red heifer. They've continuously been raising up young priesthood, men out of the Levitical Cohen family, and that when they're born, they're kept away from death. They're not born in hospitals. They're kept above the ground, so they're not close to death, because it is death that gives the defilement. And so they want them to be as pure as they can be without the purity of the sprinkled water that comes from the red heifer. So they have 5 of these young men that are prepared to do their part and act as the priest for this ceremony and do the ceremony. So it's in place from that standpoint. Matter of fact, all the different elements are in place. You need the cedars of Lebanon, you need the hyssop, you need the little red worm, and then you need the big cow. You need all these different pieces. I see the alpha and omega in each one of those pieces, and I see the red for the pure, the blood for the atonement, blood of sin, overcoming sin. So this whole thing is just beautiful to me, and I believe it's the Lord. He put this in the Bible so that it would be done, and so that we would all ask questions, and people worldwide would ask, what is going on? Is there really going to be a third temple? And is this going to happen? I think that's what brings people to the Bible and starts a lot of questions. Some people think, we shouldn't have anything to do with that. Others think, it's in the Bible, so we should do that. And so this is just a great opportunity for us to have open dialogue, to love each other, and to, as friends and as family, discuss the importance of following the laws of God. And this is one of the laws of God to do this.
Yeah, I think that too often we have people that they don't agree to disagree agreeably, and you're like, really? I mean, at the end of the day, truth is there. I mean, we know the truth of Jesus, Yeshua as the Messiah. We know that, but that doesn't mean that we're to dislike or be mean or disregard or hate on anybody that doesn't. That wasn't Jesus's style at all.
Well, the purpose of the law was to bring us to a place where we could see the fullness of what God has planned for us. And so that purpose of the law has not gone null and void. That's the covenant. And so God, he fulfills his covenant. We have a new covenant in the blood of Christ, and anybody and everybody is welcome to that. But that did not nullify the covenant that Abraham took with the Lord of the promised land. So we're all learning. As a Christian, I've learned so much being here about the importance of the land and how God has promised it. So to give it back to the Jewish fathers of our faith is glory to God, that he was able to keep them as a people throughout these 2 millennia. And then, just as the prophets foretold over and over, to actually bring the nation back and make it a strong nation. So we've seen that happen. God has provided exactly what he said he would provide. And then we have this red heifer ceremony. Well, in the Word, we see that there's going to be pure water sprinkled on all of us. We're going to have this pure water sprinkled on us. And that's what the purpose of the red heifer is, to mix it with the spring water from the Gihon and make all this pure water to be sprinkled on everything. Somehow, I don't understand it. It's God stuff. And I don't understand how we're going to have new bodies and how we're going to be here for 1,000-year millennial reign and how this tribulation ends and then the wrath of God begins. I don't understand everything, but I do know enough to know that we've got to follow the laws of God if we're going to get to him. He set out this path for us, and this is part of it.
One of the other, that's very well said, and one of the other things that I've been hearing about is that there's children going to be involved in of course, going down and taking the water out of the Gihon spring and being part of that, the ceremony, and that there's been some children who've been born similar places in the sense of never living in bedrock communities. What do you know about that?
Well, the children that are the priesthood that are going to fulfill the duties were children and raised up, and now are between 13 and 18 years of age. Are going to do that part. As far as more children going to bring up water from the Gihon or something like that, I think that's very possible, but I don't know that for sure. I haven't heard that.
So one of the other things I keep thinking in my mind of all the requirements that are in the Mishnah and the Talmud, all the rabbinic writings, as we know for those listening, read about the red heifer in the book of Numbers chapter 19, but it doesn't give a lot of the specifications that are later written about in some of the rabbinical writings. So one of the things that it says is it talks about in the Mishnah that it's on the Mount of Olives. So one of the requirements, kind of talk about how that has come into play and how there's been a location found.
Yeah, so amazingly, I've been coming here and doing projects in Israel since 2007. We were blessed with some finances. They drilled some gas wells on a farm in Texas. My wife and I dedicated 100% of the money coming to help pastors come on educational trips so that they could then tell their churches about the things that's happening here, about the archaeological finds, and about projects we do here. So we've been doing those projects for many years. In the middle of all that, there came an opportunity to buy this piece of land that's on the Mount of Olives. It never happens. And to be honest, we didn't say yes to it at the time, thinking that we would do the red heifer ceremony. I think we thought maybe that'd be a real good place for a red Angus steakhouse, and you'd have a nice view of the Temple Mountain. Sometimes, well, always the Lord is moving ahead of us, and we're just following these breadcrumbs. And then turns out He had a plan. So He planned, I believe, for us to have that piece of property. It took many years to get it registered into the name of the nonprofit. But it's there, and it's ready to be. Will be ready to be used. Of course, there's things that's got to happen. There's got to be government approvals, and there's got to be the will of the people to do it. There's a lot of things that could stumble this not happening, but we're praying that if it's the Lord's will, that those things will be taken care of, and we'll be able to do this to see the ceremony happen this coming Passover.
Yeah, and for those watching Passover 2024, what has been the conversation as it relates to any potential? I mean, like if having a public ceremony would be very amazing. What about security and stuff like that? Have they talked at all about that?
Well, to be honest with you, most of the people are going to watch this ceremony probably on a closed circuit on TV or something like that, because there's, a lot of the land leading up to it. It's just not going to be possible to really have a good place for people to stand and be close to it. They're not going to be able to come in and defile the ceremony anyway. Mm-hmm. So there's a lot of logistics in all of that and how that's going to work. But I think most of the people will be looking from a distance, and probably for myself, I plan on watching it at home on TV, because then I can see a lot more. That's going to be my plan.
Yeah. And for those that might not know, in Israel, there are various groups that are part of the Orthodox or ultra-Orthodox, all the different kind of religious groups. What do you see as it relates to the different factions? I don't mean that in a negative way, just different groups. That are all of them on board to accept this? I mean, who's kind of leading the charge? I mean, you know how it is they'll say, you see it in the Mishnah, if you have one conversation, you have two Jews, you might have 10 opinions. And it's true. It's a nice way to say it. It's not mean, but it's true. Well,
it's true for Baptist and Church of Christ and everybody else too. I mean, it's just who we are. We're humans. We all have our opinions, and then God has His way. So, no, there's people here that feel like that the actual biblical counting of the biblical year is correct, and that we're not going to see the sixth day over till we get to the year 6,000. Mm-hmm. So we still have 170 years or whatever that would be to get to the year 6,000. So there's people that believe that. So they don't think this red heifer is going to work, and they haven't thought that's going to be the thing. Personally, I think it's probably going to be the time, and there's many, many, many important rabbis very excited and want to see this happen. So, and there's just a lot of common people, even the taxi drivers I might speak to about it. They're like, really, it finally is here, because they understand that the red heifer announces the coming of the Messiah. This is why they're passionately wanting to do this, is see the Messiah come. And this is an area where Christians should line up right along with our Jewish fathers of the faith, because he's not coming until the Messiah comes. He's not coming until the red heifer ceremony, and then a temple is going to be built. So that means before that, even, we're going to have an agreement that everybody from all nations can go to God's holy mountain and pray there. And we can do that in peace. We can do that. We can respect the Muslims that are praying there. We can respect the Mormons. We can respect everyone that wants to come, even the Baptists, maybe. I mean, we can all come together in our Jewish fathers of the faith, and we can all say we love each other, and we don't understand everything that the Creator's doing here, but this is his mountain that he chose to honor his name. And he said through Solomon that he wanted a house of prayer on the Temple Mountain for all nations to come and pray. And I'm going to tell you, the fathers of our faith don't want to build just a Jewish temple. They want to build a place for all of us to be united. This is not about dividing us. This is about uniting us and coming together and becoming one.
Yeah, it's pretty amazing. And if you will, let's go back to kind of the beginning where, and the stuff that I've seen in interviews where I've read, going way back, where originally you had an opportunity to put ads in newspapers looking for. So kind of start there, and if you don't mind, kind of give us the history of how it then to the current time.
Yeah, so I'm a businessman. I've got a couple of businesses, and whenever when I was contacted by my friends that I've done projects here in Israel about doing this, and I said yes, I immediately set about building a small team, people that love Israel, that wanted to be involved in this. And so this team worked hard. Some of them produced these ads that we put in magazines for ranchers that raised red cattle. We also did hard mail. We had to go out and get our data people to make bots that go out and scrape the internet. I don't understand how that works. Your tech guy probably knows. But they did that, and we were able to come up with a list of everybody that we felt like would raise red cattle. We sent out text to their cell phones because we had those. We had their address, and then we put hard mail into their mailboxes. And then we started getting opportunities to go and see these cows. Now, when that all happened, that was in June. And here's the thing about cattle raising, it's the same as other animals. They have their babies in the spring, and they have them in the fall. So we knew that if we were going to succeed in the year that they asked me in June, we'd have to get busy because we'd need to find some cows by that fall, or we'd miss the next or the fall crop.
Roughly what year was this?
That would have been in 21.
Okay.
So we went out and we were able to find those cows. And the Lord, it was all God. You can watch some of the videos. It was amazing how he led us. And then we finally found a rancher's name is Ty Davenport. He's raised Red Angus from the 1990s, and he's a strong believer, knows the Bible. He wanted to raise the reddest of cows because he loved the scripture, Numbers 19. And that's who we got led to, and he was happy to participate. Matter of fact, he donated the Red Angus that we took from him. And then we also found some Santa Gertrudis, and the Santa Gertrudis rancher that felt led to speak to us and invite us to come down to his ranch. That's Urbanowski down by Houston. He has actually won the world championship for the most beautiful, or they're looking at beef production, but he has the most beautiful red Santa Gertrudis cows you've ever seen. And so we were able, what happened, that's why we have one of these cows is a little older. He had one of his spring crop cows get away from him into the brush. So we were able to get one that was a little older that didn't get tagged. See, if you tag them, you immediately are blemished. And so we had to get there before the tagging happened. So one of those is here. And then we have the Ty Davenport cows here too.
So one is from the one ranch and the other four are from Ty Davenport?
Yeah.
Wow. Well, here we are. I mean, what an amazing time that we're living in. And so we got the new, where can people find out more information about if they wanted to support, cows cost money, they have to be fed, kind of let the audience know how they can help.
And I'll just add, the ceremony is expensive and everything, it's a high cost of living over here. We could really use the help. If someone's led and they want to do that, they can go to our website, which is bonehisrael.com, BONEH, Israel.com. There is a link to give by PayPal there on that website, but there's also information a little further down the page that shows where you can actually wire money straight into our account. It is a nonprofit, U.S. nonprofit. It is tax deductible, and so we would invite people that could help us, whether it be $5, $1, or if you got 10 million, I'll take that too. We need to do this right. We have more projects too. It's not just the red heifer. There's much more, and eventually it goes to, let's build a temple together. So there's a lot going on here.
What are some of the other projects that you guys are working on?
So at Gilgal is the place where Abraham follows the Jabbok River into the land. He comes in by right there at Gilgal, and that's where we see the angel of the Lord station whenever there is the fall of man, and man is pushed to the east, and the angel of the Lord is stationed at Gilgal. Abraham comes in that way. Then you see Jacob leave, goes back. He winds up having Rachel. He comes back to the exact spot at Gilgal. There he wrestles with the angel of the Lord. He gets his name changed to Israel there. And much more. From there, Joshua brings the nation. They could have come straight up through Hebron, but God says, no, you're going to take the nation over and come up through the Moabites and the Ammonites all the way up, and then come in right at the exact same place. So in the book of Joshua, it says that these stones are being placed there by Joshua so that in the future, your children's children's children can come there and they can see these stones and know that the Bible's true. And one of the big problems in the world is we have people say, well, that Bible, there's nothing, you can't prove it's true. Well, those stones, they prove it's true. And they were gone, disappeared, not here. But yet Joshua said that was what they would do. They would tell people that the Bible's true. Well, we get here in 2007, and an archaeologist named Adam Zertal had found those in 2004. And they were just out in the field, but nobody could get to them. However, there were buses full of tourists from every nation in the world driving by less than a quarter mile away.
Wow.
So we spent over $500,000 to make the road accessible, to put a parking lot for buses. And we have more plans. We built a huge tower there. And so buses are stopping. People are getting out of the bus. They're seeing the stones that Joshua put on the ground. And it's the exact place of the first altar that God says to the children of Israel, build an altar here. And so it's a very powerful place to take people down at Gilgal. So that's one of our projects we're working on. And then some of the other projects we've done in the past, we cleaned the Garden of Gethsemane. Back in 2007, it was really dirty down there. There was it wasn't gated. People walked through it and left trash, kicked over tombstones. We came up with a plan that was $3.5 million plan to put a sewer line through there to stop the sewage from running into it. Picked up all this tombstones, clean everything. And we were able, in conjunction with the East Jerusalem Development Corporation and with the Catholic Church, who has control of that area. And we're not talking up on the side of the hill where the Rock of Agony is, the traditional Garden of Gethsemane, they call it, but down in the actual garden spot. And we cleaned that whole area. And so that was one of our projects that got completed back in 2007. And we have others on top of that. We're always looking for opportunities to serve the Lord over here and see prophecy fulfilled.
Yeah, and certainly to be a blessing to Israel. I mean, Genesis 12:3 tells us if you bless Israel, you'll be blessed. So it's tremendous. Well, Byron, I really appreciate your time, and for those watching, Byron joined us all the way from Israel, near Bethlehem, and to share with us all the exciting news that's happening as it relates to the red heifers. So we appreciate you watching this program. Again, thanks to Byron, and we'll see you next time.